Okay, so we're getting ready to strip the L39. As you can see, I've already separated the nose section from the rest of the fuselage that's sitting up here. What we're gonna do is remove the gear and all that wiring, and what I'd like to have is an empty cavity, and then we're gonna clean this with IPA, clean this with alcohol, make sure that surface is clean. We're gonna prime it, and then we're gonna paint it with the stone finish gray. I also will need to cover these or mask the windows here from the canopy so that they don't get any paint, as well as the canopy section that's in the front here. Okay, so what I've done here is mask the canopy glass on both the openable hatches, and you can see in there used to be a landing gear in here, and now that's gone. I have done the masking as I needed, and what I'd like to point out is a couple of things. Number one, that I masked the glass as I mentioned before, but then there are all of these seams in here, so when the canopy opens, and those seams actually, if you look on the inside, let's see if we can show that in here, you can see like right in here, you can see a little bit of green. So that means if I spray the inside, there's a good chance that there's going to be some overspray that's going to leak out to the fuselage, and that's why I guard against that with this line of tape. So right here you can also see that I put tape, and the reason for that tape is because, again, there's a gap around the gear door, and there's a gap here because this door is supposed to be operated shut when the gear is down. So there's a hole here, and there's some, looks like damage to the gear door. So anyway, by putting that tape there, when I spray the inside, I don't expect any overspray to come out and affect the paint. Here's a quick shot of what we have to paint, the cavernous internal section. So here we have the fuselage of the L39 all masked up, and what we're gonna do is paint this. So this is what it looks like now. When we're done, it's gonna have a nice gray interior with a textured look to it. So here's the stuff I'm gonna use. That's gonna be the gray, just primer, very light coats, and then the stone. So I have two types. I can't find the other can. One is Rust-Oleum and one is Krylon, and that's sort of the texture that we're gonna expect to see. So let's go. Okay, so here's what the aftermath of the paint job looks like. So I really like that better. You can see that there's a little bit of texture, a little bit of depth, a little bit of evenness in how the paint or the inside of the aircraft now looks. Even the engine bay now looks pretty slick. Looks professional. So this is why we did the paint job, to get that nice finish, that nice look, so that even when we drop stuff in here, it's gonna be easy to find. So we just finished painting the inside of the jet a few days ago, and what I'd like to do now is, before I proceed with the wiring from the back and whatnot, is figure out how we're going to mount the CMJets tank that the jet came with. This guy right here, and it's a combined smoke and fuel tank. And so the previous owner of this jet had previously drilled two vents. So one, you can see one right here, and the other one's kind of hidden in there. So that's the second vent. And what I'd like to do is keep using those so that I don't have to move these holes. What I'm gonna do is, with this tank, I obviously cut down the rails that were here before. See if I can get those in the light. So these rails, I cut them down. This side was higher than this side, so I cut that down, and you can see that on both, on here and on here. And I also cut a little bit on the back here, so that we can now slide this tank all the way in the back. And I made this former right here, and what this former is going to be, it's designed to fit exactly onto the curvature of the tank. And let's zoom out a little bit so we can see what that looks like, and fit into these rails that are on the bottom. So you can see one rail here and the other rail there. And I think if I use this to actually mount the tank like that, the tank is going to be at a little bit of an angle. So it's going to, like, instead of being level, it's going to be a little bit like that, which I think is fine, because as you can see, the vents are on the top. So if you're filling this jet, if you put the tank at an angle like that, then it's going to really fill up as much as possible before you actually get to exhaust. So I think that's fine. And what this also allows me to do is have enough room to go from the vent, the fuel vent here, to the exhaust, the vent outside of the jet, and the smoke vent here to the vent over there. So there's just enough room, and that way I don't have to drill new holes. That you can see that this former has now been glued with air epoxy and painted to match. Now, the tank. So what I came up with is a system that looks like this. So here's the tank, right? And on the back of the tank, I glued these two pieces of wood. So here's one, here's a second one, and I have this sort of circular curvature here. And what that is curvature that matches this wing tube section in here. So this guy, those pieces of wood are gonna go underneath it, right here. Going in, pretty smooth. And then if you just look at that piece of wood there, you see how that slides in to the back. And now it's engaged the wing tube. And between that and the way that the bottom of the tank sits in this former, you can see that former really holds the tank in place. Right there. So there's no sideways movement. It can't go up and down. So the last thing that's left is just another piece of sort of wood or a mechanism to actually secure the tank down to the fuselage here. And then that tank is going to be set and is not going to move anywhere. So I really like that because, one, it's simple. Two, it gets rid of the velcro, but more importantly, it's going to be very easy to get this tank out and actually service the jet. Okay, so I showed the rear of the tank and how that secures under the wing tube. And now to mount the front, I think I'm going to use this area here, as I mentioned earlier, to secure the tank. So the tank goes in like that, sits in place, and then under here we're going to have this block of wood glued just like that. And so it's going to be glued to the tank, and it's going to protrude, and then we're going to use a screw to secure this piece of wood to that bulkhead right there. So I'll get that done and I'll show you the end result. So first things first, we just use a little bit of sandpaper to just get a little bit of the epoxy out and rough up the surface. So just prime it. And then this piece of wood is going to get epoxied right there. And so from the front, that's what you're going to see. And then we're going to drill a hole right through here to secure the tank to that bulkhead. Okay, so the final product. Here's my new tank. You can see how I've modified it on the bottom. 2 ears on the back. one in front, and that fits snugly into its compartment. Boom. So as you can see, all that's left is for me to drill the hole through this former, and we'll get a screw that will hold the tank down, and that way the tank is securely mounted. No more velcro. Much easier solution to get in and out of the jet. So final step in figuring out how to secure the tank. So I'm going to take this off and show you what I've come up with. So you see there's a hole right in here, and what this hole is drilled to take an M4 sort of bolt or screw, and that goes in there. And so the last bit of it was to get a sort of a lock nut situation going so that this bolt can actually lock onto something in the back. And so I didn't have any lock nuts with me, but I made one. And basically what this is let's see if we can zoom in on that. It's not, there we go. So that is an M4 nut, and essentially it's got a nylon insert, so it's a lock nut. And what I did is I just drilled a smaller hole into this piece of wood and just gently used a hammer to knock that in place so that the hexagonal shape imprints on the wood. And this is plywood, so it's going to be fairly strong, and then put some CA to secure it. And now I have sort of a lock nut, and what's going to happen is that this guy is going to go into the back, and I'm going to screw this in place. And once I've found the right spot, we're just going to permanently glue this insert to the back. And as you can see, that's already been reinforced. I got an extra piece of ply to reinforce this former. So when that is glued onto this former, there's not going to be any play in that, and then we'll have a spot to secure our tank to the back of this former, and our tank mounting solution is complete. I should mention that I also added these two sort of supports here, and those are to make sure that the ears in the back of the tank actually stay in place so that the tank does not have any lateral shift. So that's what those are, and with that, the tank mounting solution is going to be pretty much complete. Okay, so this is what this is going to look like. So I am currently gluing this back piece of wood, which has the M4 and lock nut, onto the support, which is supporting this former. And I've just tightened it, but essentially this is what it's going to be. And once that has set, that lock nut's not going anywhere, and then we'll stick our tank right here, and we'll be able to secure it and undo it as we see fit. And the installation of the tank is complete. So there's our M4 screw with the washer, and that tank is bolted solid. It is not going anywhere. And the beautiful part is to just take it off. You take that one bolt off, one screw off, and this whole thing slides out.